This week on Faithful Freedom with Taryn Gregson.
I want to tell everyone in America that what we were seeing in the 70s and the 80s and 90s when we were children is not what's happening to our children today, especially in public schools. It's a war zone. I would say it's a war zone right now in our public schools. Our kids are being taught to just look at everything through the lens of race. And that's exactly what happened in the class at my school. They did a privilege quiz on day 5, and they had the kids rank themselves according to privilege. This is about saving America's kids, and they're absolutely nasty to you if you speak against critical race theory. And it happens to the children too, to the students when they speak up. I remember my students always comparing school to prison. I'd be like, no, it's not like that. Now it really is. It really is like prison. Stay away from each other, wear your mask, listen to the teacher. We're going to indoctrinate you. And if you don't fall in line, you're going to get in trouble. It's awful.
Today we are going inside the classroom with former California English teacher of more than 15 years, Kali Fontanilla, who resigned after speaking out against critical race theory being taught to her students. She shares her story on the backlash that she received for speaking out about this divisive topic and how her students were being impacted through this curriculum. At WeThePatriotsUSA.org, they have taken on and helping out parents in Connecticut who also have received severe backlash for speaking out against critical race theory being taught to their kids. And they allege that this severe backlash even went so far as one of their children being sexually assaulted at school for standing up to critical race theory. So you can help out those parents, those students, and that case by going to WeThePatriotsUSA.org to learn more about it. And if you would like to donate to help out their court case, you can head to GiveSendGo.com/FightCRT. It's important to note that We The Patriots USA took on this case and is helping to aid these parents and students because they think that it can help set precedent in the courts to possibly one day ban critical race theory from being taught in our public schools. And if those of you that are wanting and are curious would like a definition of what critical race theory is, according to Encyclopedia Britannica, critical race theory is the intellectual and social movement and loosely organized framework of legal analysis based on the premise that race is not a natural, biological, grounded feature of physical distinct subgroups of human beings, but a socially constructed, culturally invented category that is used to oppress and exploit people of color. Critical race theorists hold that racism is inherent in the law and legal institutions of the United States, insofar as they function to create and maintain social, economic, and political inequalities between whites and non-whites, especially African Americans. Encyclopedia Britannica goes on to say that its immediate precursor was the critical legal studies, the CLS movement, an offshoot of Marxist-oriented critical theory. And again, that definition is straight from Encyclopedia Britannica. I encourage you to go ahead and look that up. We will also be linking several of the resources that are discussed in this podcast today. So without further ado, let's dive into our discussion with former English teacher from California, Kali Fontanilla. Freedom is non-negotiable. Mandates, free speech, cancel culture, parental rights. These are real people that have stood up for their freedoms no matter what. Welcome into Faithful Freedom with Taryn Gregson, presented by We The Patriots USA, helping everyday Americans defend their God-given rights. I am delighted to have on Kali Fontanilla, who is a former now English teacher from California area. Kali, you were teaching in the Salina High School district out there until just a little while ago. Can you share your story and what happened and why you're no longer teaching there?
I taught the English learners for 5 years at Salinas Union High School District, and I absolutely loved my job, but I saw so much happening to my job the last 5 years that has completely changed the way we are educating our children right now. I want to tell everyone in America that what we were seeing in the 70s and the 80s and 90s when we were children is not what's happening to our children today, especially in public schools. And I was teaching my English learners, and I noticed that they were failing their ethnic studies course, which is a course that's going to be required in California. But my district decided to go ahead of it and require it for all of our students to graduate. And I noticed that my students were failing that class, and I actually got access to the lessons, and it was critical race theory from start to finish.
When you asked your students about that class, what sort of feedback were they giving you?
They didn't understand why they had to take the class. What my district did is that they took the health class that they had for a year, which also has horrible stuff in it. And we won't go into that. That's a whole nother topic. Our kids are being attacked on every angle. Just so America knows, they're being attacked in so many ways. Critical race theory is one of them. And they had their health class, and they cut it in half, and they gave them ethnic studies. And this was for our 9th grade students. And they were required to take this class. My students were failing it. And I would ask them, because I did grade checks every week, I would ask them, why are you failing this class? And I had many of my boys say that the class was stupid. Why do I have to take this class? It's a waste of time. And I went and actually looked at the lessons, and I could see why they were saying that. It's basically a woke leftism class. And in fact, on the opening slide, when the teacher said the purpose of the class, one of them was to be woke.
And were these classes online at the time? Like, were parents aware of what was being put out there? Or did they, at the very least, have access to see what their kids were being taught?
Well, like I said, I taught the English learners, so their parents usually don't know English. And I think that's part of what's happening in California, is that our students are being taken advantage of because the parents don't know English. They don't really know what's going on in their child's school. And a lot of them sacrificed to bring their child to America. And they don't know that their child is being brainwashed into all of this critical race theory, hyper race focused, racist garbage. And so I would say that the parents, at least of my students, were not aware of what's going on in the classes. And same with the sex ed, same with health classes and the sex ed. If those parents, because I would say that the community that I worked for, it's a Hispanic community, a lot of them are Catholic. And if they got to see the lessons these students were being taught in their sex ed class, very explicitly, just here's what your child is reading, here's what your child is learning, they would be very upset. But because, they trust our educational system, they are not very much aware of what's going on. And we need to really be working on that, reaching out to our Hispanic brothers and sisters and letting them know what's happening in their child's education.
But it's harder and harder to let these people know and let parents know what is being taught and what's going on in schools, because what happened to you when you tried to bring it to light?
Exactly. So when you speak up against this stuff, you get called all kinds of names. Your job gets threatened. I had my job threatened several times. I actually decided to resign from the district before I exposed the lessons, because I knew what was going to happen if I did it while I was still working. And in fact, I have people from the district currently attacking me on Twitter right now, making new accounts and coming on and saying, oh, you're just doing this for attention, and oh, you're just trying to get famous. And I'm like, there's a lot worse. I mean, there's a lot better things I could get famous for than critical race theory, where I get called names all the time and threatened online and all kinds of horrible things. No, this is not about getting famous or getting my name out there. This is about saving America's kids, and they're absolutely nasty to you if you speak against critical race theory. I mean, I can just read you one thing I have right here. I got a comment from someone who's most likely on the left. You couldn't give an accurate definition of CRT if you had a gun to your head. LMAO. Educate yourself or shut the F up. Not only are you just a pick-me, or I don't know if you're just a pick-me or just genuinely stupid. Either way, this is depressing. So, I mean, they just treat you. I mean, I've had multiple just bullies, really, when you speak against this stuff. And it happens to the children too, to the students when they speak up. I mean, we see videos of this where a kid comes into class with a thin blue line, a mask, which he's required to wear a mask. So he makes a statement on it, go, do that at least. And he gets bullied by his substitute teacher. And so it's very, very scary to speak up. And I know why a lot of teachers are not doing it, because they are worried about their jobs. You can't post against Black Lives Matter online without being worried about your job. You can't post against critical race theory without being worried about your job or speak up about it. So they are very much bullies when you do speak up. And I'm really glad I resigned, because now what's happening at my district is the teachers are required to wear masks all day. And it's just, our schools, especially in blue states, have just turned into prisons. I remember my students always comparing school to prison. I'd be like, no, it's not like that. Now it really is. It really is like prison. Stay away from each other, wear your mask, listen to the teacher. We're going to indoctrinate you. And if you don't fall in line, you're going to get in trouble. It's awful what's happening to our children.
It really is. And, I partner with We The Patriots USA.org, and they also have a case in Connecticut where those parents and students who spoke up against CRT in their school alleged, backlash. One even says that her son was sexually assaulted at school for speaking out against it. So you're right. There is a lot of backlash. You're really putting yourself on the line when you do speak out against it. Let's kind of educate people who maybe aren't totally aware of what CRT is and what is being taught in our schools.
Well, I just want to make it clear that the mainstream news, CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, they sent out this message to America that critical race theory is not being taught in our schools. It's a graduate level course. It's only in law school, and they're lying to the American people. That is not true. So let's just clear that up right now. Critical race theory has actually been around for a while, and it started in our colleges, and now they're trying to bring it into our middle schools and high schools and even elementary schools. And all it is really a hyper race focused curriculum. It's hyper race focused. So everything in America was built around race to either oppress or to give privilege. And so you'll hear terms like intersectionality. And what that means is that, because I am a brown woman born in poverty, I am basically a victim of all of the institutions in America that were built to benefit the white male who inherited wealth. And so our kids are being taught to just look at everything through the lens of race. And in my school, they actually learned the definition of critical race theory, and they were analyzed school policy through the lens of critical race theory. So for example, they looked at they'll look at the dropout rates. And they'll say, oh, African-American kids are dropping out at a higher rate. It must mean that this institution is racist, right? Instead of actually looking, there's so many other reasons why African-American kids are dropping out at a higher rate than maybe Asian kids or Indian kids or white kids. But they just look at the race, and they look at the institution. They say, oh, the institution's racist, and that's why they're dropping out. So therefore, we need to lower the standards for African-American kids and accommodate them more so that they can actually be successful in school, which really does a lot of damage, because that's all I've ever worked with is minority children. They are absolutely capable of meeting the standard, but that's what they're doing right now. They'll cancel homework. They'll not suspend kids that are cussing out their teachers when they should totally be suspended, because they're seeing a higher rate in African-American kids. So therefore it must be because we're racist, when really there's so many other issues going on, especially fatherlessness, which is causing a lot of this. In fact, 60, 70 years ago, when America was more racist, more systemically racist, we actually had African-American families were a lot more whole. So there must be something else going on besides just racism that's causing a lower rate. And if you look at Indian and Asian kids, they're actually outperforming white kids. And that's why they are starting to call Asians white adjacent. They do that kind of stuff. So they will take statistics and they'll kick the Asians out of the statistics because they don't want to show that they're actually outperforming the white kids. So, and it totally dispels the myth that everything's built to privilege white people, when Asians and Indians, which some Indian people have darker skin than me, are doing well. They actually have the highest average income in America, Indians and Asians. So it's just super hyper race focused. And it's also, I have been praying a lot about this, and God when I wrote a critical race theory guide for Blexit, which is an organization by Candace Owens. And you can find the critical race theory guide on her website, the Blexit website. And before I wrote the guide, I prayed to God, and I was like, God, I don't want to be wrong on this. I need you to confirm that this is actually evil, that this stuff is going to hurt our children, which I'm already seeing, but I really need you to confirm, Lord, so that I can continue this fight, because there is a lot of persecution. And as soon as I got done with that prayer, I went onto my Instagram, and there was a video of this girl. Looked like she was about a middle schooler. She was speaking to her school board, and she was on the verge of tears, saying she was told she had white privilege, even though she had experienced she's a foster child, and she has experienced every single type of abuse that a child could experience. She was actually found in a trailer, starving, full of fleas, and she's being told she has white privilege. And that's exactly what happened in the class at my school. They did a privilege quiz on day 5, and they had the kids rank themselves according to privilege, and to ask if they were on the bottom, and compare themselves if they were on the bottom or if they were on the top. And of course, they were loaded questions that are being carefully asked. One of the worst things that could ever happen to a child is sexual abuse, and that happens to all races. That's what really can hurt someone in their life, is sexual abuse. And that they don't ask them that question, which they shouldn't. It's very invasive. But they just pick these carefully chosen questions to create this narrative that all Black kids are victims and all white kids are privileged. And it's hyper race focused. And whenever there's hyper race focus, racism will follow. And in California, it is against the Constitution to discriminate. The California Constitution says we're not supposed to discriminate by race, and that's what these teachers are doing.
Do these teachers that are teaching these courses, do you find, because you mentioned how people are afraid to speak up, do you find that some of these teachers are having to teach this almost against their will because of what the administrators are handing down to them? Or do you find a lot of these teachers are wanting to teach this curriculum?
I would say, at least in my area, the majority of teachers want to teach it. A lot of them lean towards the left, and they have been, they went to college, which our colleges are very left leaning, and they have been taught that leftism and socialism and communism and all this hyper race focused stuff is better than what we have here in America. And so they're very excited, actually, to tell our children that the American dream is not real and that America is racist. And, it's one of their favorite things to do, actually, I would say. And it really breaks my heart to see that. But I also do believe that there are a lot of teachers that are being asked to go to trainings where they're being taught to treat their Black and brown and white kids differently. And they're disgusted by it, but they can't speak up because they will get bullied or they will get labeled a white supremacist. And especially the new teachers that don't have tenure yet. Luckily, I had tenure in my district. So when I would get these lessons, I would just not teach them. We would get homework lessons where it's just, we got a whole week of Black Lives Matter. And I didn't give any of it to my students, but that's, going against what I was being told to do. But because I had tenure, because I had a really good reputation in my district, and because I just kind of kept my head down and didn't say anything about it, I was able to get away with not giving the lessons. But there are a lot of teachers, especially when they don't have tenure, that feel pressure to give these divisive and racist lessons to their students. And they really can't speak up, because now we have kids that have been radicalized, because that's what these schools do. So maybe if you have a child that's already left leaning, or maybe their parents are already left leaning and telling them, that America needs to be burnt down and done with and restarted. And then they go to these schools and they get that message from their teachers, they're becoming radicalized. And so if you're a teacher that stands up against that student will go after you, so it's a war zone. I would say it's a war zone right now in our public schools, especially in blue states, and especially in middle school and high school. It's a little bit more protected in the elementary schools, but I think so many parents have just got this idea that they just drop their kids off at school. It's free. And yes, there's some things that they don't agree with, but at least it's free, and at least it's safe for their child. That's not what it's like anymore. And we're seeing more and more incidents, even in red states now. There's teachers here in Florida who have vowed to continue to teach critical race theory, even though it's banned. And they've also rebranded it. They get rid of the term, but they still have it in the curriculum, and they still have it when they actually teach the child. And so one solution that I always tell parents is to advocate for academic transparency laws. So what that means is that all lessons need to go online so that you can actually see what your child is being taught. And it's sad that we actually even have to fight for that. That should be automatic. We should know what these teachers are teaching our children. But there's a lot of states that are fighting for academic transparency laws. And if you want to learn more about it, there's actually a lawyer group called Goldwater Institute that are doing a lot of work for that. You can partner with them to get that in your state. So that's just one solution. But yeah, it's a war zone.
And I don't think that there's any coincidence that a lot of this has come to light because of the online learning that was taking place during the lockdowns and during the pandemic. What did you see that as something that's encouraging, that parents were actually seeing this and seeing firsthand what their students were learning? I think some parents thought that possibly this is not, there's no way that this is in our school, but it really was. Or some parents might not have even been aware of this being taught at all, or that critical race theory even existed.
Yeah, God works all things out for good. And although I firmly disagree with all of the lockdowns that happened for a year and a half, when I had students who were watching their siblings in their lap and taking class. And, I taught the English learners. So of course that was more difficult to teach online English, but they did great. My students, I was so proud of them. They're so resilient. Our kids are so resilient, but America was actually given a gift because we got to get a small glimpse of what was happening in the classroom. And that was still a censored glimpse because teachers are well aware that there could be a parent in the background when we were teaching online. But when we're in the classroom and we shut those doors, there's no one. There's not even a camera. And so those teachers can say whatever they want to their students. And luckily now kids are starting to wise up and use their cell phones to secretly record these. And we're getting, if you follow libs of TikTok on Twitter, they have all kinds of stuff that's happening in our schools. These kids are recording these teachers just flipping out on them and cussing at them and hurting them and, saying awful things, especially if they're on the right to these students. And then also it happens within their peer group. You get bullied if you are, and which we also didn't see online, is when your child goes to school and they stand up for Christ, or they stand up, let's say they supported former President Donald Trump, they will get bullied. They will get spit on, literally spit on by some of their classmates for standing up for what they believe in. And it's really a hostile environment for a Christian conservative child.
There is a lot of, labeling going on that you're just defining there based on political parties and or skin color or race or ethnicity. How do you think, and maybe you can relate it to what your experience was like at your former school, how do you think this all ties together with the discussion around gender, where you're not necessarily allowed to define someone based on the fact that they're male or female or something else, but yet on the other hand, we're supposed to define somebody by their race or their ethnicity. How was that rationalized possibly in your school district?
It isn't rationalized. You made a really good point there. It is irrational. And I mean, think about when you were a kid in high school. Did you have any non-binary classmates?
No.
Did you have any gender fluid classmates?
No.
Did you have anyone that identified with the pronouns they, them?
No, this is new.
I have been teaching for 15 years, and this has only been, I would say, the last 3 years we've had that. And that is absolutely, children are so influenceable, especially when they're teenagers. I mean, think about how much you've changed since you're a teenager. We changed so much. I'm completely different than when I was a teenager. Completely, I still have the same, fiery spirit, but I was like way out there, yes. And they're just going through so much, and they're finding their identity, and these teachers are implanting identities into them and identity ideas into them that are totally unbiblical. And, I don't know if everyone in your audience is Christian, and that's okay, of course, but our country is founded on Christian morals and values. And this idea of multiple genders is it's confusing for children. It's so confusing. And kids even go home and cry when they learn about it. I heard about a story about a kindergartner who went home and was like, "Mommy, am I turning into a boy?" It was a girl. "I don't want to turn into a boy. I don't want to turn into a boy." It's so confusing. And so, yeah, it doesn't make any sense because, like I said, the race thing is like so hard and set, but then the gender thing is so fluid, right? And it just doesn't even, and we're just finding such an attack on our children in so many ways. It's not even just in the race thing, it's the gender thing, it's the wearing mask all day, it's making them sit inside, and they don't even get a break outside for more. I remember they've cut down recess by at least half from when we were kids. It's just, they just want to destroy our children. Masks all day. I've heard that first and second kindergartners and first graders, this new generation of kids, are drawing pictures without mouths and nose because they're seeing so many people in masks. They don't know what a mouth and nose looks like. It's just heartbreaking. And I'm just really grateful that people are waking up. The parents and the people that have like small podcasts, large podcasts, or people that are, at parent advocates that are going and speaking up at these board meetings, you guys are heroes. And don't ever be afraid to speak up because you will be blessed. It was really hard. I mean, I was in tears when I spoke up about this and when I prayed to the Lord about this, because I knew I was going to lose a lot of my family members because most of them are left leaning. I knew I was going to never have a career in public school again, but I honestly have only been blessed since I spoke up about this.
Taking a quick break to encourage you to head over to givesendgo.com/fightcrt. This is where We The Patriots USA is raising money to help fight critical race theory in our children's schools. They are also doing this to help out the parents and students in Connecticut that allege that they receive severe backlash for voicing their concerns about CRT in their school. One parent alleging that their child was sexually assaulted at school for speaking out against CRT. It's a heartbreaking case, so heartbreaking. I know that we as parents that are listening to this do not want this to happen to our children as well. So I encourage you to head over to givesendgo.com/fightcrt. You can also head over to WeThePatriotsUSA.org to learn more about that specific case that we are taking on in Connecticut. You can also learn more about WeThePatriotsUSA.org. Your tax-deductible gift will assist this 501c3 organization, not only working to help this case and to fight CRT, but they're also working to protect religious freedom, medical freedom, parental rights, educational freedom, First and Second Amendment freedoms, and so much more. Head to WeThePatriotsUSA.org now or go to givesendgo.com/fightcrt. Now back to our interview. Can you talk a little bit more about how this was infiltrating your school from the administrative standpoint too? I understand that you as a teacher received certain gifts based on your skin color. And so it wasn't just isolated to the curriculum and the students. You also had to experience or take part in this too, correct?
Yes. And we don't get an option to not take part in it. And that's what I don't like, is that if you don't subscribe to the hyper race focused, I'm a victim, I'm oppressed, and you're Black, you get treated so badly. I mean, so badly. Yes, about a month after the George Floyd riots, we received an email. The Black teachers received an email, which there isn't very many in my district. I would say about 10 out of 700 to 1,000 teachers. And we received an email from the superintendent that said that they're going to have a special group of parents and teachers that are Black to figure out how they can better accommodate the Black teachers. And I'm like, first of all, I don't need your accommodation. I don't need you to treat me differently than someone else. That feels racist to me. Yeah, I don't want you to look at me and go, oh, she's a Black teacher, so I'm going to treat her differently than the white teacher over here. So already red flag. And then he also said that a group of parents had gathered a gift for all the Black teachers, and you can come pick it up from your site. And we hope you are honored and comforted from this gift. It was something like that. And it was just already, I was like, red flag, do all the white teachers get a gift when The black supremacists mowed down people at that parade in Wisconsin. No, I mean, that was absolutely an act of violence against white people. But of course, they would never give a gift to just the white teachers. That would make national news.
What was your gift?
So in the gift, it had and then I got the gift, and I'm like, come on, can it be a gift card or something? Target. I would use that. I opened it up, and it had an "I love being black" pin. It had a "Black Educators Matter" mask. It had an "I love being black" sticker. It had an Africa symbol with a Black Power fist on it that said "Black Teachers Appreciation." It had a letter in it that greeted the God in me with an African greeting, and I greet the God in you if you greet the God in me is African greeting of OTEP. I mean, it was the most bizarre, weird gift. And I decided to make a video about it because I started making parodies of a woke teacher with the mask on TikTok, because I was just, it was part of my way of venting. I'm like, I'm going to be this woke teacher on TikTok, and TikTok is such a horrible platform. And I wanted to explain where I got the mask, because I'm wearing this Black Educators Matter mask. And people are like, where did you get that mask? And I decided to share where I got the video, and the video actually went viral. You want to know how divided the country is? Look at the comments on that video, because people are either like, this teacher gets it, she's amazing, I want her to teach my kids, or it's some of the worst comments I've ever received. Like, she hates her blackness. She just wants to be black. She just wants to be white. Not all slaves are free. Just horrible comments. And so, yeah, it's just really sad what's happening in America right now. I firmly believe that America is more racist than what it was 20 years ago because of all of this. And that's what they do. They claim that they're trying to solve racism by actually creating more racism. And it's so backwards, it's so toxic, and it's not from God, that's for sure.
How is this critical race theory, especially at the school you just came from, how does it coincide with the history that is being taught in the schools as well?
That's another myth that's being pushed by. So first they say that critical race theory is not in the schools. And then they say, well, if you're trying to ban it, you're trying to ban Black history. And that is such a lie. Like that is not what critical race theory is. It's not the teaching of Black history. I think that's important. We need to learn about all history. And in fact, they leave out a lot of history that we should be learning about in America. Like, for example, the Cherokee owning 2,500 Black slaves at the peak of their slave ownership, and not including their descendants in tribe membership, even though they had them as slaves in their communities. So that's something that they will conveniently leave out, so that they can make sure that they demonize white people and victimize Black people or people of color, which is another rebranding of the term colored, which I don't know why they're doing that either. But it is not the banning of history. And I teach my students, one of my favorite books to read with my kids every year is Watson's Go to Birmingham. It's about the Jim Crow South. It's a really fun book. I highly recommend it for parents. It's about a Black family, a Black whole family, which most of them were whole back then. And just a boy's experience of going from the North to the South and what he went through. And it's just always been a great book to teach my students. So the idea that banning critical race theory is going to somehow ban the teaching of history or the teaching of slavery is absolutely wrong. And that's just that's a lie. They like to use the term misinformation. I'm just going to use the term lie, which is exactly what it is.
You talk about how they try and, massage the narrative around this, but in some facets, they are being very open with what this is as well. Even, Encyclopedia Britannica, just before this interview, I looked up the exact definition of critical race theory, and it has right in there, it says that its roots are based in Marxism. And it says it right there in the Britannica Encyclopedia. So, on one hand, they are kind of saying the quiet part out loud in all of this as well. So I want people to be aware of that they are very transparent with the fact that this has Marxist roots. Can you also talk a little bit about who are the people that are pushing these messages? Obviously, administration has to be approving this curriculum that is going through here. So who are these types of people that are pushing this curriculum through?
That's funny you mentioned the word Marxist because they're Marxism because they are Marxists and some of them are admitted Marxists. Like I said, they were educated in these woke colleges, which are 80% left-leaning professors. And I remember I went to them. I went to UC Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is in California. It's a very liberal area. And I actually got a lot of the brainwashing that they are doing in the schools. Luckily, I don't take school very seriously, especially college. And I would just read what I needed to read and throw it away and write a paper and be done with it. But because a lot of it was garbage. But it starts in there in the education. It really does start in education. A lot of these professors and teachers union people and administrators and teachers were radicalized by their college education. And now it's just going younger. Now these kids are starting to be radicalized in their high school education, in their middle school education, in their kindergarten in their elementary education. I mean, there was just a video that came out of kindergartners doing a Black Lives Matter march through their hallways and in masks and marching to Black Lives Matter. And there was this one little girl that was like, almost like North Korea, and I was like, what are we doing to our children? They're radicalizing them. So it's definitely coming. I mean, if you look into the history, and this is like a whole nother topic and something everyone should research, but there is long-term plans to have a Marxist revolution in America. And they are absolutely using our educational system to get that revolution.
And more so on that topic of who these people are that are implementing this, some of these people are white, and they are saying, I am an oppressor in all of this. Yep. And they are the ones helping to funnel this through the system. Do you think that they do it because they truly do feel bad and they truly do think that they're helping out? Or what is the motivation behind that? Because I feel like, could be going out on a limb here, but I feel like most people in America nowadays would not qualify themselves as racist or, hurting other people intentionally because of their race. So do you think, we hear that term white guilt thrown around a lot. Do you think that that is happening to some of these people that are participating in this?
Absolutely. I mean, white saviorism, white guilt, it's a religion for them. Most of them side towards non-Christianity, where God says in 1 Samuel that we are supposed to, the man judges by the outward appearance, but God judges by the heart. But most of these people that are for all of this stuff are very into secular humanism, and they are very much on the atheist mindset. And so they're trying to find, which we all do, meaning to their life. And they have found a religion in this. And that is why I hate to label it as like this, but it's almost like a cult. And if you disagree with it, I mean, you see how they turn on their own. If you do anything that goes outside of their little group thought, you get treated horribly. And I think that a lot of them are feeling like they're paying their penance or paying their, they feel guilt about something. So therefore, if they're, making sure that they're being strong anti-racist, they somehow earn their merit by that. And it's funny because I'll get these people, and a lot of them, and I hate to put race into it, but a lot of them are white leftists. They will say horrible things to me. And I'm like, are you earning your anti-racist merit by putting down a Black woman? Good job. Because that's what it feels like. It feels like they're really, truly they're just zealous for it, zealous. And that's the only way you get to where you start treating people, others like that, and dehumanize them if they don't go along with your mindset. So I firmly believe they are not just doing this for show, but it is what and that's why they're so convicted on it and mean to people that disagree, because it is like a religion for them.
And let's move forward with what we do now. You are, not only did you just resign and put your foot down that way, you're pushing forward and you're starting your own curriculum. So explain to us how you're trying to remedy this issue.
Yeah, it's not a curriculum. I'm actually starting my own school. So
okay.
It's going to be an online school called Exodus Institute. Is going to be fully accredited K through 12 online school for parents that want to pull their children from public schools, or maybe even their private school, because sadly this is happening in our private schools too, and even some of our Christian schools. And I hate to say that some of our Christian churches have embraced the critical race theory message and Black Lives Matter, but there are a lot of wonderful schools that aren't, and they're great. And if you have your child in one of those schools, you are lucky, and just pray and fight to keep it out because they want everything. But if you are thinking about homeschooling your child, but you want the support of credentialed teachers that you can trust, that will be fully transparent, Exodus Institute would be a good fit for you to try out. But we're also doing, which is what I'm even more excited about, not only are we offering a K through 12 program, but we're also offering a supplemental program for parents that can't pull their kids from public school. Because I understand that there are a lot of parents that need to work. Both parents are working. The public school is right around the corner, and they want to be able to drop off their kid there, but they're really, really worried about all the lessons their child is getting. Well, they can go to Exodus Institute and get supplemental lessons that can undo some of the stuff that a child is learning at school from credentialed teachers, and done in a way that's just dynamic and fun and will be more interesting than what their kids are getting at their schools. Yeah.
Are you guys developing this right now, or is it up and running
Yes.
already?
We're getting so close to launching. By God's grace, he has been helping us with this so much. I can't even explain to you all of the miracles that have been happening for us to get it launched. We're hoping to launch by mid-March. Right now, you can go to our website and check us out. We have a lot of stuff on there for parents to read through just to see where we're going with things, and they can sign up for our mailing list. But like I said, it's going to be a full K through 12 program. So if you want your child, and it's going to be fully accredited. So if you want your child to go to college afterwards, get a high school diploma, they can get it with Exodus. But then also, if you are already homeschooling your child and you already have a program, but maybe you want a break and have them take a few lessons from us, well, they can come in and get lessons that are pro-America, pro-God, pro-family, and taught, and because we have the truth, and that's where I feel very strongly about what we're doing right now, because there's lies and truth, and the lies are critical race theory and all of these multiple genders. Those are all lies. But at Exodus, we are making a commitment to teach children the truth, and you don't really have to indoctrinate them. If you're doing that, they'll understand, because we all have been an innate desire to want to know the truth.
And I think that you very much, pinpointed that when you were talking about how your students did not enjoy that class. These kids their red flags are going off too. They see right through this, don't they?
Yes, they do. The kids that haven't been fully brainwashed yet. It's funny. I would say this new generation, millennials, which I'm the tail end. I was born 1982, so I'm like the oldest millennial they can be. But Generation Z is a very new generation. They actually are very depressed in general. There's a lot of issues going on with Generation Z. They don't have a lot of hope for the world, but they're also so open to hope. That's why they're very susceptible to being brainwashed, for one, into thinking that socialism and communism will be what saves America, because they've been taught that it's so horrible here, and they think it's horrible. And so, okay, communism and socialism will help. They have very good intentions with falling in line with this stuff, but they are also they want the truth, I've noticed. And they're also they're very nostalgic. Like, I had a lot of boys whose favorite show was Full House from the 90s. I was like, Full House is
like my show.
Yeah. These are like gangster kids from Salinas, like this was like the district I worked for was in the gang capital of California. I mean, and their favorite show is Full House. And they reminisce about a time when there was no cell phones. They would be like, Miss Fontanilla, what was it like when there was no cell phones and you guys just would play outside? And they do not like cancel culture. They think it's, they love watching the TV shows that have been canceled, like The Simpsons and Apu and stuff like that. And so this new generation is definitely a lot more open to, they're tired of it. And we can never underestimate the rebellion of teenagers. Right now, to be a rebel is to be like a Christian conservative who doesn't want to wear a mask. You're a rebel now.
Wow, quite the 360 from when I was a kid.
Exactly.
That's great hope for us. And I think it also highlights, the psychological and emotional impact that these teachings can have on our children when we're constantly giving them negative messages like that. When we live in what is supposed to be and should still be the freest and best country in the world. And, it's a shame to see all of that. And I want you to also before I let you go here, give adults warning signs to look out for in their lives as well, because we talked about what to look for a little bit in their kids' classrooms and curriculum, but adults are being fed this too through buzzwords like diversity and inclusion in their workplace. What should they be looking out for in their corporate settings?
I highly recommend everyone going and reading the critical race theory guide I wrote for Blexit. It's on their Blexit website. If you just click on their main menu on the bottom, it says Blexit Against Critical Race Theory, and it's a 25-page guide. And actually goes into all that, to diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI trainings, which are happening at corporate America across the nation. Even small businesses are doing these diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings. And what they do is they sound really nice. They use these words, these buzzwords that make things sound so nice, but it actually is just an excuse to be extremely racist. And it'll probably want to be one of the most racist trainings you've ever gone to in your life. And I just encourage everyone to stand up against this and to say something, because the more we're silent and the more we live in fear, the more they are going to win. And we have to think long-term, because that's what they are thinking. So yes, we may experience some short-term consequences from standing up, but we need to remember we're doing this for our children and for generations after us. Because what kind of future are they going to have if we continue to let them steamroll in this direction of hyper race focus and racism towards people, and saying that America is racist and needs to be burned down and rebuilt? So we have to stand up to this, and we have to say something. And you don't compare yourself to other people that may sound more eloquent or may, be better at expressing themselves than you. Everyone has a message. Just share it from your own heart, share it from what God has told you, because we need every voice in this fight. And if you can't be a voice in this, I understand that as well. Like, let's say you have children. I've always wanted to have kids, but unfortunately I can't. And so now I'm helping America's kids. But if you have children and let's say you can't speak up in your job, and you know that if you speak up, you would lose it and you can't put food on your table for your child, I understand that. But encourage and speak up and pray for those that are speaking up. So that's probably the best thing you could do for all of us that are on the front lines doing this, is to pray for those that are speaking up. And, find your friends that are against it and encourage them as well. And find your little team that you can stay strong during this time, because it seems like they really, like I said, they like to bully. So you need to have a support system if you do take a stance.
Absolutely. And praying for those that are speaking out is wonderful to do. And because it's scary. It's hard because, topic of race is obviously very sensitive. And, again, not to overgeneralize, but I think that most people have a healthy view of all of this, and most people want, opportunity for everyone in America. And so I think that people are scared because they don't want to sound like that's not what they want. When in reality, we just, the American dream is real, and it is something that everyone wants everybody to have the opportunity for. So it takes courage in this fight, and we are so grateful for the courage that you have brought to this. And now tell everybody where you're living. You moved from California, correct?
Yeah, we moved to Florida, my husband and I. He's also a teacher, and he was in the same district as me. And now we are opening our own school together. We love Florida. It's a wonderful state. I feel like I moved to America. I was born and raised in California, so I have seen it go down the toilet. And I have so much respect for people that are still in these blue states and fighting the fight. I think we need to do both. We need to fight to keep this stuff out of the schools, but we also need to pull our kids out of the schools. We need to do both. We need to know that we're not going to be silent. We're not going to just roll over. We're not going to just run away, which is what I did. But I had to run away just for my career. There's no way I could have started school in California. There's too many regulations there. There's too much. I mean, I had people in my area that are actively connected to like crazy gangsters and stuff like that are on the school. I mean, there's so much corruption in that area that I needed to get away. But those that are staying behind and fighting the fight, I have so much respect for you guys. But also, if that's what you need to do for your family, is leave and get to a red state, I agree. I think you should do that too. Pray about it. But I see America turning into two different Americas, and we need to make sure we're on the right side when things really start going down, which is happening right now. We already see it with all of the pandemic that's been happening. Our children in blue states are still wearing masks all day. Our children in red states have the choice for the last year and a half, So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so happy here.
And we're so glad to have you on as another beacon of hope here on this podcast, because we see so many people like yourself, whether it's in the healthcare industry or anywhere in America right now, that are not okay with the way certain things are taking place, and you are putting boots on the ground and making a change and making something happen. And I think that that's wonderful for people to know that they can make a change, that these various systems that overall are good but have little areas that we can improve upon, you guys are getting out there and doing that. And so thank you so much. Tell people where they can find you, and tell us your school's website once more.
Yes, it's Exodus Institute. thinkexodus.org is where you can find the school website, thinkexodus.org. And then you can also look up my name, Kali Fontanilla, on any major social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, hopefully Truth Social when that comes out. But Kali Fontanilla, KaliFontanilla. So that's where you can find me. It's pretty fun. I do parodies of a woke teacher, which people are getting a good laugh from, because sometimes comedy is another way to get to people's hearts.
Absolutely. We need all the laughs that we can get.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
We need all the laughs right now that we can get, and we need to ease the tension a little bit too.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for all that you are doing.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me.
I love Kali's new school name, Thinking Exodus. We're going to link where you can find her in the show notes below, and to her school. And we also encourage you to check out the link to help fight CRT in schools, because We The Patriots USA is not on the sidelines. They are right there in the fire on this issue, trying to bring unity and not division through this very divisive curriculum that is being taught in our schools. You can learn more about the case with the Connecticut parents and students at WeThePatriotsUSA.org. You can also give to help their case that hopefully will set precedents that this divisive topic will not be able to be taught to our children, especially without us knowing, by going to givesendgo.com/fightcrt. We the Patriots USA is fighting for our freedoms and our rights in many different facets. You can also head to gogetfunding.com/stoptheshot. That's another initiative that We the Patriots USA.org is backing. There are so many great cases that We the Patriots is supporting right now, so make sure to go check them out. And as always, we appreciate every one of you standing up for our nation's future, for our children, and for choosing faith and freedom over fear.